continuing on with the Sculpt tool projector. In this video, what Lee's going to do is talk about and demo the built-in projector shaders that come with Unity and talk about the problems that we have with them and why we would need to create our own custom projector shader.
Right. In the end of the last video, I was kind of showing or trying to demo. Matter of fact, I can just hit play and we'll start from there. But we've got a projector in now. So if I grab it, and right now it doesn't have a material to it, but if I set this thing up to about 40, and let's go give this thing a shader. So we don't have any projector shader. So if I start off with diffuse, and it's got our material, we end up with a nice red line everywhere. Let's turn it to white for now. But it scales to cover our entire surface. It's not acting like a projector. And that's because by default, a projector uses whatever...
Are you kidding me? It's projecting down onto the terrain.
Yeah, it is, but it's not projecting inside of its view frustum like it should. Most projectors come with a projector shader. If you've played with the built-in shaders, they have a couple of pre-built-in shaders that you can use that will project it the way they're meant to be projected. By using the other ones like we're using here with the diffuse, it doesn't know that it's a projector, so it's just overlying it over the top of everything without constraining it correctly. So if I hit orthographic, it doesn't toggle to orthographic mode. The projector does, but the overlay of the texture on top of our mesh does not work correctly. So that's the issue that we're getting there. So what I wanted to do was demonstrate what happens when we use some of the prefabs, or not so much the prefabs, but the built-in shaders that are designed to work as projector shaders. And we can do this by importing the projectors package. And there's a whole lot of materials. There's technically 3 different types of projectors that they've got set up for you: a light projector, a shadow projector, and a grid projector. Mm-hmm. And it's like going, maybe the light projector does what we need it to. Maybe we could get the shadow projector to do it. Grid projector, I'm pretty sure, is right on out the window. It's like, we don't need a grid. So, but I'm going to bring them all in just to play with for now, and then we'll delete them out anyways afterwards. So let's go ahead and import them. So give it a sec to import. Let's go ahead and run. Let's play with some settings and see what kind of stuff we get with the built-in projector stuff. We're going to once again take our projector, move it up to 40. Here is our projector using the diffuse shader, but now that I've imported everything else, I have a projectors folder that has light and multiply. Notice I don't have a grid. So let's go ahead for now and take the Sculpt tool, and I'm going to turn it off. Just get rid of it, because part of what we imported are these projectors, and we have some prefabs. So let's play with the grid projector. Let's drop this sucker in, and let's move him up. And kind of
start seeing it.
Yeah, we can start seeing it. So kind of hard in this case. Let's see if I can zoom in some more.
Now you can see it better.
Yep. And if I bring this down, it has a fall off factor, so the closer I get to the ground, the stronger of an effect. And I know that our character is at about 22, so if I set this to about 25, and I select our character, and I frame up, we can see that it's projecting a grid on the ground. Mm-hmm. So if we then go and select the grid projector here and switch it to orthographic, we can see that it's switched up the projection to be an orthographic. So it straightened out those little curvy lines that we were getting. So if I turn it off, you can see we get some warping. So I think that's just trying to follow the triangle where this one's more accurately following straight lines. Now if you look, the reason why it doesn't have its own shader is because it's using the light shader. So it's projecting this as almost like a grid type light source. Now if I delete this projector, and let's create one of the light projector prefab. So let's drag this guy on. Again, let's drop them in at about 25. Zoom in some.
Yeah, raise it on up some. It'll
Yep.
make a little more sense.
But you can see it's kind of like a very cheap spotlight.
There you go.
So we're getting the effect of a spotlight without actually calculating a light. Now, that doesn't mean that these are inexpensive and you're going to go, great, I'm going to throw 500 of these things into a scene. So if we go over to the game, we look at our stats, we're at 9 draw calls. If we turn off the projector, you're down to 5 draw calls. So they're not cheap. You don't want to be throwing these all over the place, which is another complaint that I've seen a lot is Unity doesn't have a really good way of doing decaling, like throwing bullet hits all over the place. And there have been some people that have tried using projectors to simulate that effect, but it gets very expensive very quickly. So if you were thinking, wow, I can use projectors to throw decals all over stuff, you probably don't want to do that. All right, so let's kill the light projector. Let's bring up the shadow projector. So if we've got this one.
Same thing position.
Yep. 35. Actually this one we'd want to bring fairly low. So you can see it looks like we've got an inexpensive or just a round shadow underneath our character. And I have no control again. There we go. And the further away we get from the character, the bigger the shadow is. She must be really big. She casts a big shadow. Look at that. And this is also something you'd probably want to put to orthographic and then set the orthographic size to control that way. As she's jumping up in the air, if you were to attach the projector, and actually I can demonstrate this too. The way you would use this in production is you would take the blob projector, you would parent it in with your character, set your orthographic size to be something that gives you a realistic type shadow. Let's try 7. So something like that. And then where it says ignore layers, you want it to go ahead. In our case, we want it to ignore everything but the terrain. So that causes our shadow to only appear on the terrain. And it's also a little bit cheaper than the light one, and because we've turned off all of our layers but our terrain, it only has to project this onto a single or the single mesh. So if you want to run around, Jason, you can see that the blob shadow follows along. So it's just a real cheap way of calculating shadows. And that's why you want to do orthographic. If I were to turn off orthographic, and let's do maybe 2. Nah, 3. Okay, now run around and jump with that one. So you get some really big shadows. That might be what you want to. So
it grows
yep.
when she jumps.
So that is what blob shadows are. Now, let's get rid of the blob shadow and turn our sculpt tool back on. because now we have some shaders. We've already established that, yeah, I'm going to have to go over to this one. We've already established that our diffuse shader isn't going to cut it with our tool. So let's see what happens when we use some of the projector shaders. Let's try light. All right, that one. Are we seeing it yet? Nope. All right, let's see. Try orthographic. Oh, that's why I need to select my mask. I was like going, I'm not seeing anything. All right, let's do our test pattern. And let's set our fall off to be the fall off here. Right. So now what we've got is it almost like a light gobo or a light cookie on our light, which is broadcasting it. For some effects, that might be what you're looking for. For what I was looking or have in mind for our tool, not exactly what I was hoping for. We can go and we can adjust the color of the light, which points out the problem that I have with it is if I adjust the alpha, alpha has no effect, but even if I go to full bright red, this doesn't show up very well. Yes, and it just kind of looks like the grass got burned or something. So not what I wanted. Let's try the other one. So if we go to projectors and we try multiply, and now we're multiplying by black, but it doesn't seem to have, again, the effect that I want, not even close. So we can't even see it now, but that's going to be a function of our image. If I were to pick one of the other ones, let's try the shadow. We can see it's working, but it doesn't work with our textures. Definitely not going to cut it. So while each one of the shaders has its use, the effect that I'm looking for our sculpt tool that you saw in the very first video when we were demonstrating it, where it looks like we've got a very intense red tool painted on things, that's easy to see, that's the effect that I would like to have. To achieve that, we're going to have to write our own shader for the projector. So that will be what we're going to be doing in the next video. I just wanted to show you what you can get with the built-in stuff, what you could use them for. And with that knowledge, we're going to build our own shader that gives us the effect that we want for our sculpt tool.
Okay, very cool. Well, with that, that is going to conclude this video. Thanks a lot.